Hey guys, if you have ever said, I want to buy a house, but I have no idea where to start, this video is for you. I'm so excited to be here with Ashley Flores. Hi, Ashley.
Hi.
And Jenny Guillermo. Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
And I'm Liz, the real estate attorney. We're super excited to be chatting about this topic because, girls, don't we hear this like all the time? Where do we start?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
So
agree.
honestly, I feel like a lot of misconception is about you start going on Zillow and start looking at listings. Like that's how you start the home buying process, but it's so far from that, right?
Oh yeah.
Ashley, where do you think is like the best place to really start for somebody who's out there looking to buy a home this year?
Well, definitely not Zillow.
Right?
Definitely not Zillow. Zillow does not have real-time listings, first of all, and what you see on Zillow is not really what the actual state the property is in. So a lot of the times Zillow will have properties on there that are not on the market, that are not real-time listings, that are not real-time pricings. And so you're just going to kind of be led astray, and then you're going to be bombarded with calls from different realtors and different lenders that are trying to, hook you in into working with them. And so it becomes a little bit of a nuisance. And I think a little discouraging too. So if you're going to start, your home buying process, I would say a great resource to have is, speaking with family members or friends that have also purchased homes, seeing, who they worked with as far as like a lender or a realtor, even, checking your local news and finding out where, there are home buyer seminars or credit seminars, checking your local Eventbrites, right, for seminars and events like that. Jenny and I are actually hosting a credit seminar this month. And so we'll be advertising that soon. And it's a great place to start because you want to start with knowing where you are, as far as your home buying power, like, and it starts with your credit, right? Do you have credit or the credibility to be able to take out that loan?
Right.
And a credit specialist will be able to kind of gear you towards that direction and help you and understand whether or not you have, what it takes to be able to pull out that loan. And then speaking to a lender is also going to help you with that. I feel like most of the time the lender is where you start. If if nowhere else, start with a lender, because they're going to tell you here's where you're at, and to get where you want to be, you need to do ABC to get to XYZ.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like Jenny comes in. Like someone like Jenny, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Jenny? Does that make sense to you?
I agree. I have many people that start with the Zillow and then they're so discouraged because their answer is probably like, you don't qualify for this property, is too much. So it's better just to start realistically looking to where you are actually pre-approved or qualifying for the amount that you're going to be qualifying for is very important. Because you could be looking at mansions that you're not nowhere near. I mean,
Yeah.
it's good to dream and this is wow, this is my goal in the near future. But if let's just say the best way to actually start is like what Ashley was just saying is with a lender.
Yeah.
Um, they would what we do is prepare our clients to actually be approved once they find the home. So the pre-approval process is very important,
So
I would
maybe,
say.
so what I guess what I'm hearing is making sure you know how much you can afford, right? Because
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
think especially this website that has estimated mortgage payments, you have no idea until you have a licensed loan officer looking through your documents to see if you have the ability to pay. You may think, oh yeah, that looks good to me, but
Yeah.
you may not be able to qualify for that much of a monthly payment.
Correct.
So and also those are just garbage numbers because they has to do with your credit score or anything. So
Right.
definitely I agree, Ashley, starting with Jenny with a loan officer who can actually look at your financial picture, have a conversation with you to like explain like what's your lifestyle like, do you want to give up your lifestyle for your home, or and just be able to understand where you're starting so that way you're not going on these websites to see homes that you're then going to be disappointed of when you can see the homes that you can afford. Like that sucks.
Exactly.
You
That's
want to,
exactly what I do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. So technically, once you have sat down and you spoke to a lender, the lender's going to tell you, okay, this is where you are, and your credit, you have, you have this, you have that. And so if you pay off this and if you pay off that and you start working towards, that goal, they create basically a game plan to get you there. So you might not be ready, and who knows, maybe you are ready, and people just don't know. They don't know where they are. They don't know if they're ready. They don't know if they're not ready. And the only way to find out if you are ready is to speak with a lender. Again, take a look at your financials, where you are. Your job has a lot to do with it. And people don't know that. Like, you switch jobs thinking, I'll just keep finding another job here and there. But you don't realize in the long term, when you have goals to own a home, you want to stick to your job for at least 2 years so that you have that credibility of being able to stay somewhere, right? Mortgage lenders, banks want to know that you're going to be able to not only afford to pay your mortgage, but that you're going to pay it and that you're going to pay it on time, that you're not a liability.
Right.
And so it's important to kind of set up that game plan. And I always say you have nothing to lose, right? In finding out whether or not you're ready to buy. You have nothing to lose. If anything, you have everything to gain, because now you know where you are. You know if you can afford that $400,000, $500,000 home. You know if you can afford that, $1 million mansion. Who knows? You never know. And the only way to know is by taking that first step. And I think that people are just afraid because they don't know where to start. They don't know that all you have to do is sit down and talk to a lender, and then let them look at your financial credentials, see where you are. And
everyone, look at Jenny. She is very nice. Like, she's not intimidating. You don't have to be intimidated to call just to see where you're at. And Ashley, you have no idea how, well, I know you know, but how many people do we talk to on a daily basis that are like, I never knew I would be able to qualify this year. It was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna maybe talk to her, but it's gonna be like years down the road. And then they're like, oh, this can happen like now, or this can happen in a year. Like, the timeline just shifts a lot because knowledge is power.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I agree 1000% on that.
Yeah. So now let's say once we've gotten to the point of pre-approval, we've talked to Jenny, we have our numbers. Now what?
That is the $1 million question, right? Because there's so many times people will bypass the lender and think, let me just go to a realtor, right? Because realtors, we sell homes. And so they think, let me just talk to the realtor, see what they know. And we get bombarded with questions that are essentially for loan officers all the time. So having the pre-approval, the realtor is always going to say, have you spoken to a lender? Do you have a pre-approval? You want to come to your realtor with a letter of pre-approval on hand. That is going to let your realtor know essentially what your buying power is, right? How much affordability you have for a home. If your pre-approval letter says that you are, approved for $550,000 for a home, I'm not going to show you a $700,000 home. I'm not going to even show you a $575,000 home because it's unrealistic. You're not going to be able to afford that home. And so we're going to maybe look at homes that are $500K, $550K is a little bit of a stretch because you want to also be able to have that room to negotiate and offer a little more if you absolutely love the home. In which case, the realtor starts to kind of work hand in hand with the lender to make sure that everything is kind of lining up and matches to what is in your best interest for that particular home. So anytime that you have that pre-approval, you pretty much are ready to start looking and start shopping around, not on Zillow.
Right.
Not on Zillow. If steer clear. You want to talk to your lender, your realtor. We have access to MLS, multiple listing services, which show real-time listings, real-time property values. If the prices are going up, if the prices are going down, you're going to be able to see, an idea of what you want, and we can cater it and customize it to your actual criteria, your search build. Are you looking for a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, a house with a garage? Do you want something with a basement, a certain neighborhood maybe you want to stay in? That is going to help us really kind of narrow down your options and show you homes in the area of where you're searching, and also that match and fit the criteria of what you're searching. So we sit down and we have what's called a buyer consultation to see what it is that you're looking for, to kind of get into your head, find out what your must-haves are, find out what your nice-to-haves are. So like what you can live without, what you can't live without. You have to be realistic. Not every home is going to be the perfect home. So you want to go with an open mind and understand that a lot of cosmetic things can be catered and changed to your liking after you purchase the home, which I think is the nicest part of being a homeowner, to be able to
Yeah.
pick walls the color that you want.
Right. And I love that you kind of explained this next step of like the home buyer consult, because I remember when I first bought a home, like I am not a creative person. I'm not somebody who sees things. Like I'm very like black and white and like this, I'm a lawyer, right? So like words on a page. But like I could not, I could see something and be like, I like that. But like if it wasn't exactly that, like I didn't know how you can get to that, but with improvements, in a home that necessarily doesn't. So having that agent who is able to like, first of all, ask you all these questions, like these are questions that most people don't think of. They're like, oh, I guess I'm buying a house, it's 3 beds, like, or whatever it is. But there's so many factors and to make a house like a home for you and your family. And being able to zone in on those types of questions. I love that about your process, because not all agents do that, and not all agents kind of learn from their clients about exactly what they may not even realize until these questions kind of get flushed.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So now I guess those are like the 2 really big key parts. I feel like of getting the process started. You're getting qualified, then finding a home. Have maybe talking about like the timeline. I feel like a lot of people may have that misconception that like if I'm buying a home, like I'll be in a home in like 30 days. Maybe talking about like, Jenny, how long does it take to get pre-approved? What does that process look like? What are you asking for? And then maybe to Ashley, how long from a pre-approval to buying a home? Like what's, I guess, a normal range, or is there a normal range?
All right, so everyone's experience is a little different. It depends how ready you are, and it's good to know that once we initiate our buyer consultation, similar to what Ashley was explaining, we want to go with real facts about the person that's actually purchasing. I myself like to go with the process of getting someone pre-approved instead of pre-qualified. When you get a pre-qualification, it's just based on information that has not been verified. We can just go based on what does your income look like, and we write it down. We have an idea of how much the person will qualify for. The pre-qualification will determine that. When it comes to pre-approvals, we're actually doing everything that we have to do to make sure that our income is calculated correctly. So basically, on our first meeting, we want to consult with the client, it's a consultation, grab all the information that we need, review the documents. Normally, I want to say it can take within 48 to 72 hours to make sure that we get their pre-approval done the correct way. If we do take a little longer because we have to do a verification of employment, the income is maybe a little tricky to actually make sure it's calculated correctly. Some of us are just not getting that set salary or that set 40 hours, if it's variable income or if it's self-employment. So it all depends. Everybody is different. But if we take the time and do it correctly, the pre-approval it's going to what we make sure is that at the end of the day, when the person finds a home, we can get the actual approval and get the clear to close and finish everything. Within the time frame, I want to say the least amount of time that with the whole process, it would probably be the pre-approval. What takes more time is probably looking for the right home. A lot of people take a little longer with that. Once we do find the property that the offer gets accepted, the process is maybe within 3 to 4 weeks to actually get a clear to close, and then we can go through the steps of getting it closed. Like around 3 to 4 weeks, I want to say.
Yeah, I agree. I
It
feel like
depends
that
because
makes
there's a lot
sense.
of different things that we have to make sure that we check, like title, appraisal, and all that.
Yeah, no, and to your point too, the difference between pre-qualification and pre-approval is so huge. I know that especially in like the competitive markets in and around Boston, like there's been a lot of like listing agents that were requiring for a period of time, not just a pre-qualification, but pre-approval before you could come to the home. So definitely important to have that. And also like if you're calling someone for a loan and they're just asking you, oh, what do you make? What do you think your credit score is? Okay, here's a pre-qualification. If you think that that's going to be thorough and not set you up for disappointment later, it's definitely a fool's road. Like you really want to make sure that if you are talking to someone, talk to Jenny and talk about actual real numbers with proof, because it's so sad. I've had clients in the past where unfortunately we get to the process of purchase and sale, offer acceptance, purchase and sale, appraisal, all the things, and everything was great. But because they had originally a pre-qualification instead of a pre-approval, verification of employment and their income wasn't done. And an answer that could have come up at that time didn't. And all that time, all their dreams, all of that time wasted because they were ended up not being able to qualify and the deal terminated. And it just was so disappointing for them. If they had started with a loan officer like Jenny, who's going to pre-approve them, different story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then Ashley, so then from that's kind of like the background, I guess, for the timeline for loan. But then what have you seen on timeline for someone to actually find their home?
It does vary by person, to be honest, because it also depends on how particular you're being, right? So if you have realistic standards about the home, right? That perfect home that has marks every check box, I don't think that you're gonna find it being a first-time home buyer, especially. You have to really, it's important for you to sit down and again make that list of your must-haves, your nice-to-haves, again, what you can live without, what you can't live without, because you're probably going to have to make that sacrifice of, okay, do I need it or do I want it?
Right.
And that's going to be the make or break of whether or not you submit an offer. And just because you're submitting offers doesn't mean that your offer is going to get approved, because there could be 5, 6, 10 other offers that are submitted with your offer. So you have to be, prepared for that the news where your offer didn't get accepted. And maybe it can mean that there's something else out there that's better for you. I always like to look at the bright side of things, right? And I like to stay very positive, because it can be discouraging when you're in the market and you've been searching for a home for a year, 2 years, 3 years. For some people it can happen right away, and for some people it can take a lot longer. So again, it just really it comes down to how realistic you are about the home that you want to get into. And that's why when you submit these offers, you have to really strategize on how to submit these offers. What are you putting in your offer? What contingencies do you want to make sure that are being taken care of in your offer? Are you having that home inspection? Are you doing the appraisal? Are you paying gap insurance if it doesn't appraise to the value of what you're offering? These are all things that you want to be educated on and well prepared for, which is why I think it's important to really kind of not skip the steps of speaking to a lender, sitting down, having that buyer consultation, maybe going to that home buyer seminar to get the education that you need for the process of purchasing a home. Because then you get your offer accepted and you think you have all this money in the bank you've been saving for your home, and then you just go and buy a car.
Yeah.
Got accepted. I'm gonna buy my clothes in 45 days, and you just bought a new car. Guess what? You're probably not gonna make it to the closing table.
Right.
Some people, they are not aware of that, so they make these mistakes of opening up that new credit card. And it's important to be able to speak with lenders and realtors that know the things that you cannot do and that are
giving the job.
Right. Like we want to let you know, hey, just so you're aware, you got an offer accepted, you have a pre-approval. Don't buy that car. Wait till after you buy your home. Don't take out that credit card for your family vacation. Wait till after you close on the home. These are things that sometimes fall through the cracks, and you know as a buyer that you shouldn't be doing. And it can be, the make or break of getting you that property and getting you to the closing table, because your income and all your information after you get pre-approved has to get verified again
Right.
when to the closing table. So now your offer is accepted. You've gone through the contingencies. You've done your inspection, your appraisal. Seller did what they needed to do. Buyer did what they needed to do. You're getting ready to get to the closing table. Your lender has to make sure that everything that you said in the beginning still matches and adds what you said in the end. Right? Because now it's in the underwriter's hand, and they're the ones that are going to determine whether or not they're going to give you the loan to close, the clear to close.
Yeah.
When you hear you're clear to close, that is when you celebrate. That's the woohoo moment.
Exactly.
That's when you can pop the bottles of champagne.
That's right.
Balloons and the confetti. Yeah, when you get that clear to close, that's when you're like, okay, great, we made it. We did it. We're finally, getting to the closing table. We're going to sign those documents and we're getting the keys to our new home.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that we I feel like brought up a little bit about another video that we can potentially do in the future is like common pitfalls and like how to avoid them. And so I think that would be a great next video for all of us to jump on. But I really enjoyed this. I feel like it's such an important first step for buyers to just understand like the preliminary, like what to expect and how do I dive in. But I think that all of this was great information, and it was so nice seeing you, girls.
Thank you. Likewise.
Bye. Thank you.
If you are interested in some more videos, we'll be posting them soon, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.